meantime, President Trump telling CEOs this week that reform is coming to Wall Street and the plan to dismantle Dodd-Frank will become a reality. Joining us right now with some of his thoughts from Capitol Hill and Insight, Congressman Steve Stivers. He's the chair of the National Republican Congressional Committee. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thank you for joining us, Congressman. Help us try to understand what you think the realistic timeline is and what you think the impact is going to be of whatever the, I don't want to call it repeal and replace, but the shifts, if you will, for Dodd-Frank.
Well, it's going to be reform, and the bill is called the Choice Act. Chairman Hinsterling of the Financial Services Committee that I sit on will reintroduce the Choice Act probably in the May timeframe is what I've heard, and I expect it to move through the summer in the House and get to the Senate. It'll take 60 votes in the Senate, so we'll probably see some changes from whatever we pass in the House. It's not 100% pre-negotiated with everybody. It's a chance to really get the capital back in the hands of people that want to create jobs. Right now, under the Dodd-Frank regime, billions of dollars are spent by middle market and community banks to comply with a bunch of regulations that frankly shouldn't pertain to them, and that's billions of dollars that could be in the hands of people that want to live their American dream by buying a house, starting a business. Right. So it really will make us.
So what is in the bill that changes? Does that mean it excludes the smaller banks, or is it changes the rules? What is in the Choice Act?
So one of the major provisions creates a capital requirement that says capital can be a cushion, and if you have a certain capital level, last time it was 10%, then you can actually use that to consider yourself complying with a lot of the other regulations, because as you know, private capital is a cushion. It would apply to all banks, but the bigger banks, as you probably know, probably won't be able to get to that kind of cushion because, 10% capital is a lot. You'll probably see mostly community banks get there, and the number may change, but it was 10% last time. So we'll see how the draft works. But
and just so I understand,
a lot of middle market banks
for less regulation. So higher capital, less regulation. Got it.
Correct.
Understand the trade-off.
That is
Andrew
correct.
has more
That's
questions.
one of the big pieces.
Congressman, what is the fate of the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau?
So I expect what we will do on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is change the structure so that it's a commission like almost every other financial regulator, and we will put them on appropriations. Today, they're like the world's most dangerous college kid. All they have to do is send a letter to the Federal Reserve saying send more money, and the Federal Reserve has to send them a check. And so there's no accountability. Every other part of government comes through the appropriations process. In fact, it's one of the main constitutional checks and balances that our founding fathers set up.
Hey, Congressman, I don't know if you had a chance to think about this morning the interview the president gave to the Wall Street Journal. Do you think it's appropriate, from your congressional viewpoint, for the president to be commenting on interest rates and the dollar?
Well, normally the Federal Reserve Chair talks about that kind of stuff, and the president doesn't. But, this is the first time we've ever had a president that is so intimately involved in the markets and probably understands the markets better than any president before him. So I don't think, it's tradition. There's nothing that says the president can't talk about it. But, obviously we need the president focused on big things, and we've got big things we need to do. We got a lot of work ahead to reform our tax code, make it competitive with the rest of the world, to right-size regulation to make sure we're there for safety and wellness, but not overburdening businesses with a bunch of red tape. So we're working on that agenda, trying to work on health care.
Related to that, obviously, the president, we were just commenting in the last segment, has flip-flopped, if you will, on a number of economic issues, things that he pledged or campaigned on that he's now changed his view on, whether it be NATO, whether it be the manipulation of the yuan in China and elsewhere. Does that impact his influence or change how he's able to influence policy in a good or bad way in Washington right now?
Well, I think it shows that he's willing to listen. One of the people earlier said that Republicans don't support the Export-Import Bank, and I just want to set the record straight on that. A majority of the House Republican Conference voted to reauthorize the Export-Import Bank a couple of years ago, so it's not fair to say Republicans don't support the Ex-Im Bank.
But it is fair to say
more Republicans
it is
supported
very controversial
it than
among
opposed
Republicans,
it.
right? I mean, it is curry capitalism in their view, right? You're actually allocating taxpayer dollars to something that private industry would not. And why should the taxpayer bear that burden when everybody's so upset about too big to fail? Why would you do that with this other stuff?
It is controversial among some people, but I will tell you, in a trade war, I would never want to disarm. And 120 countries have export credit finance facilities, and the United States is just one of them. Ours has more restrictions than almost any of them across the world. So there are already checks and balances on it.
Right.
It makes small business competitive internationally. I'm a proud supporter of the Ex-Im Bank. It's not crony capitalism. That is a few of my colleagues letting their vitriol get ahead of their brain.
Okay.
I completely disagree. Just because so many taxpayers around the world are forced by their governments to put their money into questionable projects all over the world that oftentimes don't work out doesn't mean that we should be doing the same thing. Well,
I believe that we have checks and balances on our Export-Import Bank, and frankly, people say that it costs dollars. It actually generates a net profit for the government.
That's not the point.
Well, okay. Well, maybe it's not your point, but it's what you said earlier. It's generating a profit, and the point is it makes American business competitive abroad to create jobs here at home. And in a trade war, if you believe we should disarm in a trade war, you can have that opinion. I don't think we should, because my small businesses in Ohio want to create jobs and want to be competitive, want to create things here and export them to the rest of the world. They can't do that.
Are we in a trade war right now? It sounds like you're saying that we're in a trade war now. I mean, that we need it because we're in one?
Every day, small businesses are in a trade war for customers all around the world. That is the trade war I'm talking about. It's a war for customers all around the world. And when other countries have export credit facilities and we don't, then our companies cannot compete.
So what is your view of the border adjustment tax then in that context?
Well, my problem, I have some concerns about the border adjustment tax. I would love to see us do something to make America more competitive. But when you charge, I happen to go to the Ohio State University Business School, but you don't have to go to business school to know that charging a domestic manufacturer 20% of the net, a foreign manufacturer 20% of the gross, is not the same number and probably not WTO compliant.
So favoring industries in one section. Oh, we got to get to J.P. Morgan Chase. I'm sorry, sir.
Let me just hold on for just one second. Why don't we we'll do the earnings and we'll come back.
Since we're talking about banking, anyways.
Wolf in a second. J.P. Morgan beating $1.65. Also revenue beating as well. We're going to get to Wolf in a second. Congressman, we should thank you. I think we're going to have to run. I wanted to get also your views on Glass-Steagall. Come on back, given.